Hello and welcome to the program. I am DEJI. Health officials are still battling with the coronavirus outbreak in Nigeria, with increasing number of infections recorded on a daily basis. What may now be a new challenge for the containment of the disease is inadequate bed space in isolation and treatment centers. In Lagos, which is the epicenter of the pandemic, the government says it is adopting a new case management strategy which will include home-based treatment. The Lagos State Commissioner for Health, Professor Akin Abayomi, said the state's isolation facilities are filling up, but that Lagos State has about 30% bed capacity yet to be taken. He explained that this is based on the number of recoveries the state is recording simultaneously with the new cases being diagnosed. Now, Abayomi also said many COVID-19 patients in the state often abscond when they are presented with their test results to practice self-treatment. And this new trend is the motive for the strategy of what he calls the home-based treatment being considered by the government. Let's just take a listen now to his explanation now on this issue of home-based treatment.
As we admit we discharge, that's one reason. But as we diagnose and we try to evacuate the patients to the isolation centers, we're finding it difficult finding some patients. And the trend is increasing. So it seems as if people who get a positive test are reluctant to be admitted, maybe because of the stigma. There are people who are already practicing self-home isolation on their own. Because we can't find them, the numbers they give us, maybe they are false numbers or they don't answer their phones. When we go and retrieve them in their residencies, they have absconded from their residencies. So they are isolating themselves in different places. So, in effect, the concept of home isolation is being practiced by many Nigerians, even though it is not yet a state or a national policy. But the people of Lagos are practicing home isolation, which is one of the reasons why we as government are trying to transition to home care, home-based, because it's happening anyway. So we might as well regularize it and make it an official option for some people, especially if you're mild or asymptomatic, to isolate yourself at home.
Now, we'll wait and see how the government actually goes about its plan and how effective it will be in the containment of the coronavirus in Lagos State especially. And I should say that this same containment strategy is one that the federal government, as a matter of fact, is planning to adopt because of the increasing number of infected persons in the country. Joining me now to discuss this further is Dr. Joseph Minari, who is a subdean in the Faculty of Science and is also a molecular biologist, subdean in the Faculty of Science at the University of Lagos. Thank you very much, Doc, for joining us on the program. The last time we discussed, we didn't have this number of cases, but then between when you were on the program and now, not a very long time, it would appear the number, we're beginning to see some kind of explosion now in the number of confirmed cases in Nigeria.
Yes, sir.
How do you explain that?
Yes, thank you very much for having me. I remember the last time we spoke. I told you then that we need to be careful so that confirmed cases and the death rate will not escalate. I remember as at last month, on 21st April 2020, the number of confirmed cases was still around 700, while number of deaths was 25. But as we speak, as at yesterday, the number of confirmed cases 7,000, and the death rate is 211. So looking at the percentage, you can see that it's about 85 to 90% increment. And then that speaks volume because the way everything is going now, I just pray that we will be able to manage the situation. We've already seen countries like Russia and Brazil already battling with the escalation of this pandemic. And I think a lot needs to be done by us here in Nigeria to be able to so that we'll be able to contain this pandemic so that it won't go beyond control for us in Nigeria specifically.
Now, let's talk about these home-based management of cases now that the government is trying to adopt. It calls it community management of cases. It is true bed spaces are filling up. As a matter of fact, Lagos State is running out of bed spaces. But do you think at the moment, at this time, that home care management would be okay for Nigeria, especially when it comes, when we understand that, look, most people lack the discipline to self-isolate?
For me, for now, I don't think it's a very good is a good way to go. Even though I can categorically tell you that some weeks back, I actually foresaw this coming, because when I looked at the statistics and the rate at which we are having confirmed cases and the rate of death, and it seems the people, Nigerians now, the populace, the way we're also handling it, as people coming out with different conspiracy theory, I know it's going to get to a point that the isolation centers or treatment centers, as the case may be, might not be able to cope any longer with this. And that is what we are gradually getting to. Even though I still believe that for now, it's even too early for that. I think the government can still do a little bit more in having more of our treatment centers and isolation centers to be able to take care of quite a number of patients more.
Okay,
because as it stands, there's a lot of communication with the people. A lot of conspiracy theories, and if you just say that people should stay at home, I can assure you some people will not take it seriously, and it will eventually result to escalation of this pandemic in Nigeria, because they will just go about their normal businesses and they will not even let people around to know that they've been tested positive. So I think it's a dangerous trend for us that we need to look twice, even though it seems as if the government is getting to a point that they are being overwhelmed. But at the same time, we should look twice before we eventually embark on this fully.
But how would you expect the government to deal with this? Because, you're quite right. It's possible some people may be tested positive. They are told that they are positive, go home, self-isolate. They would never do that. That's true. And when you consider the issue of stigmatization as well, there is a possibility, high chance that people would not want to disclose their status. And that makes the chances of self-isolation now very, very slim. But how else does the government deal with this, especially when it is now beginning to run out of bed space?
Yes, thank you very much. I think one major thing we need to do now is awareness, communication. You see, I can assure you that most Nigerians, they are aware that there's coronavirus, but most people still don't believe that there is coronavirus. And that is why we are even seeing this attitude that we are getting from the people. Yes, it seems the people don't trust the government, probably due to poor governance over the years. So anything government says, people will doubt it. They will formulate conspiracy theories around it. So people are finding it very difficult to trust the government. And so that's the challenge. So one major thing we must do now is how to manage information properly. A lot of misinformation, a lot of disinformation, a lot of fake news is on social media. Somebody will just come cook up something and throw it there, and it will circulate and it will go around and people will believe it. So that is why the attitude of the populace is very poor towards even following even the simple procedure that the government has even said, okay, let's follow this procedure as the lockdown. You go to some places, even in Lagos now, they will tell you that there is nothing like coronavirus. So they still don't believe in it, that coronavirus exists. And that is the major challenge. If we can't break this barrier of communication, we must look for a way to disseminate information. We must bring so many people on board to explain to people, let people have understanding of these things. So many people don't have understanding of the virus, and so they are doubting it. Some people even came up to say, "Oh,
please help us. Can you help people like that understand the virus? Just explain to us now what this virus is, how it can be contracted, because we've seen, for instance, even public figure, prominent public figure now come out to say it's what they had. I mean, we saw one, I wouldn't want to mention the name now, who caught the virus, was quickly treated, and after about 7 or so days, he was discharged. He tested negative. And then he came out to say what he suspected he had was malaria.
Yes. Thank you. Exactly. You are very correct. I heard that, and I also felt a little bit bad, because those are the things that so many people that already on the lane of conspiracy theory, when they hear things like that, they just fall on it and they go on. Now, you see, some people even came up to say, "Oh, malaria has killed more people. Why are we now devoting more time to the virus, the COVID-19 virus now?" The point is, most of the symptoms that is being shown for, even for malaria, sometimes there are some symptoms that you get in malaria that is not peculiar to malaria. Sometimes some people will think they have malaria. When you get to the doctor after carrying out your research, they will tell you that it's not even malaria, that is typhoid fever. So the mere fact that you have similar symptoms with malaria, with typhoid, with COVID, does not still mean that it's not COVID. That's number one. Number two, you see, malaria's case is that they will say, "Oh, malaria killed more people. COVID has just killed 200. Why are we spending money?" We have solution to malaria. If anybody dies of malaria, it's because of probably doesn't have access to the drug, but the drugs are available. Malaria is treatable. We have treated nets that you can use. We fully understand the mode of transmission of malaria, which you can prevent. So, but in case of this, information is still unraveling, still coming up on the COVID, and that's why we should be careful. The mode of transmission is different from malaria. The mode of transmission of this, which could be by when somebody sneezes, it could be through somebody that has touched a surface, and touching the nostril of and the virus getting access into the body, and some other things. But for malaria, it's not like that. There must be a carrier of maybe the mosquito carrying it to infect somebody. So the mode of transmission is different. The mode of transmission of this COVID-2 so far that have been known has been so rapid and so unknown that you can even carry it and be asymptomatic. So those are the things. That's why we have to be extra careful and not say, "Oh, this is malaria." And the mere fact that somebody goes in there and he was able to recover, maybe he just had a mild condition. We have different categories. Some people fell into the mild condition category. Some people are in chronic conditions and critical conditions now. So that is why we should not play with this. The way this virus operates.
Very quickly now.
Yes, sir.
We have also seen, from what we are seeing now, the number of cases we're seeing, explosion of cases. I don't know. I'm beginning to feel, and correct me if you think otherwise, that there's a possibility that COVID-19 had come into this country long before the Italian man was discovered, before our index case.
Yes, there's a possibility of that, even though, scientifically, we don't always want to go with what we cannot substantiate scientifically to prove that. So we still want to stand with the February 27, but it's also a possibility that the virus came in even earlier than the index case that we had in February 27 of the Italian that came in. So it's a possibility. It's a possibility. But having said that, the mere fact that the rate of the transmission of this virus, a lot of work still need to be done on it to be sure. Probably there are other, because we have people that contracted it and eventually according to them, they've not made any contact with any known person that have tested positive and so on and so forth. And then sometimes you test everybody around the person, they might test negative, and this might be singled out to test positive. So a lot still need to be done, and that is why we should be more careful. We need to be more careful. Take this information to the grassroots, take this information to the streets. We need to convince Nigerians that COVID-19 is real. We need to convince Nigerians that the death is there and is rising. Probably share statistics with them. I know the media is doing a lot. Thank God for people like you too, that's always bringing it to the fore so that we'll be able to discuss it and people will be able to have understanding. So people need to know that this thing is real. And then we should not wait until it will escalate like Russia. Russia at the beginning was at the bottom of confirmed cases. All of a sudden, today, they are second to the United States. So we need Brazil also. It has escalated, and people were even looking that it's escalated in a place. It's already the curve is already flattening now. It's already gradually coming down. The countries like Spain, like Italy, and even China that was at the forefront initially. So we need to be careful, because why we need to be careful and we let our people know, we don't have the healthcare facility to cope with the escalation.
And how quickly do you think a vaccine can be found? How quickly do you think a vaccine can be found? Of course, we've seen some promise. Some researchers are making positive progress. You must have heard of some of the vaccines they're trying at the moment. Some coming out with positive results. Of course, they're still conducting their clinical trials and all of that. But from what you have seen so far, how soon do you think we may have a vaccine?
Well, maybe before the end of the year, because the development of vaccine need to pass through different phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, before it could be brought out, before it could be licensed and it will be released to be used. So it's probably might be looking maybe earliest before the end of the year. And so we can't say, because we have over 100 groups all over the world working on vaccine. It's possible that some of them might not be successful. It's not automatic that if they try it, it will come out positive, but we pray it comes out positive. So it might not be as quick as we think. And that's why even WHO is scared, and WHO came out to say, if care is not taken, we might have to stay with the virus for quite a longer of time than we expected. So the coming up of the vaccine might not be quick. So what areas that can be quick is area of treatment. Those working in the area of treatment, there's a possibility that they might come up with treatment faster than vaccine. And then those also working on drug repurposing. Let me quickly say this too, like the example of the person you initially mentioned that contracted, an important personality in Nigeria that contracted the virus and was discharged. Part of what they are saying is that they are using malaria drugs for them. You see, there's what in scientific research, there's what we call drug repurposing. There are some drugs that they are used for specific purpose, but in cases of pandemic like this, you try some of these drugs to see whether it can work for some other ailment. So it's being done. So don't say because they tried a particular drug that is used for malaria when you are there, and so you feel that it's malaria that you have. No. At least by now, we're supposed to have gone past the level to be doubting this. We have prominent people in Nigeria here that have died, that have gone. We have some people have relatives abroad that they've sent to them that have died. So we're supposed to have gone beyond that. So I think vaccine may take a little bit more time, but more energy should be channeled towards trying to get drugs, especially in area of repurposing. And some drugs might help to shorten the period of recovery. Okay, why some might possibly be able to clear off the virus within a very shortest time. There are some people, the minister has constantly said that some people will recover even on their own. That's the nature of the virus. If the immune system is not compromised, some people have the tendency, even without using anything, just taking their normal meals properly, they will just recover on their own. But that still doesn't mean that COVID-19 is a scam. We need to understand this, because it pains me when you go around and you hear people's comments on what they are posting on social media, and then people begin to say, oh, it doesn't exist, it's a lie, you understand my point, and it's coming, they just want to use it for money. Can the whole world be deceiving themselves? This thing it's not peculiar to Nigeria. It's not peculiar to Nigeria. It's all over the world. And then it's affecting the economy of the world. So the high time we began to know that this thing exists, and we all put our hands together. See, and it's a two-way thing. It's not just what the government alone can do. The government needs to play their part, and we, the people, also needs to play our part. I know over the years, government probably failed the people, and so the people lost the trust in government. But at the same time, this time around, we need to put our hands together. There should be proper awareness, proper communication to the people. Let all hands be on deck. There's no playing down on anybody. If anybody has an idea, let them come on board. Let's look for a way to properly, scientifically authenticate anybody's claim, so that I'm just afraid, and I'm just praying that this thing doesn't go out of hand in country like Nigeria, because it will be so disastrous because of our population. That's our healthcare.
That's all we all pray for.
It's not as developed as some other countries.
You're absolutely right. That's what we pray for. Dr. Minare, thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Welcome, sir.
All right, we'll take a short break, and we'll be right back. On DEJI 360, we don't just ask the questions. What is wrong with amending the Constitution the way the National Assembly members have been doing it? We seek answers.
Constitution is constituent.
Our problem is not lack of laws. Our problem is lack of the willpower to implement our laws.
Answers that provide clarity.
While we negotiate, we should try to make it a point that the girls must be complete.
The clarity you need to make informed judgment, so that you can make the right decision and take action. People are saying it is you politicians that are responsible for this, that you are the reason why this is happening.
All these dollars that call themselves governors in this country.
I wish we had people like Tony at the National Assembly.
God forbid that I go to join that band.
DEJI 360, providing clarity to issues.